Howdy, everyone. This is Practical Prince. We're doing Talk in Tarot, so go ahead and drop your questions, your comments. We can just chat if you'd like. I've got a little more setup to do, and then I'll be shuffling back. Feel free to join the party. Let's see. Let's get my visual guide. That's a question there. That's ready. And then micro smartphone on the back camera. So that we can show spread perfect. And the volume on this down. Yep, that's new now. Okay. Oh, now let's go ahead and get our usual caption. I forgot last time I had the questions on display. So, there we go. Let's see. Aren't you? Well, I guess those don't really need mix. There's this over there. All of this can be easy mixed over here. And then we'll go ahead and show. Hey, Wingman. How's it going? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing pretty good. Got married yesterday and the reception went well, so can't complain too much. Definitely plenty to do today, but confusing? What do you mean? Thanks. And I guess what are the confusing things going on? Yeah, well, I've got a very even keel about me. Uh, Not too much rocks my boat. I tend to think of, I don't know if you've seen the animated Disney's Mulan, so the old version, but I tend to think of it more like that pole climbing exercise with the weights. Like, you're now bound to this person, but now you can get places. So, well, she has class today, so um, wasn't planning on a honeymoon right after the wedding, anyways. Um, we're looking at October. I'll probably take a break. Although right now I've got to start looking for a job, so we'll see. Stream might start changing anyways just because of that. Well, she's got school. That wasn't going to change. So, um, yeah, I could get out of work if I needed to, but there was other stuff we couldn't get out of, at least not nearly as easily. So, yep. Yeah, it was kind of funny. She got in an accident at the end of Saturday night, and she listed me as, or well, I showed up at the scene later, and I ended up exchanging contact information with the other group, and I guess they listed me on their claim. So their insurance called me during the reception. We were off stage at the moment, so I could take the call, and I was like, "Yeah, can I get back to you? I'm at my wedding." They were very understanding. Well, she's already got plans for the honeymoon, so we'll see. We might want to mix it up, but you know, what makes her happy? It's pretty important. But yeah, they were good about it. So. Oh, it's I don't know. It's that if it's that worthwhile. So I might write it down in my journal at some point. I should probably document the event. I mean, we had a photographer and a videographer, but there's something to be said for the first person perspective in writing. It wasn't that bad. We were off stage. So it was actually after that sort of section. I don't know. I'm not too spicy a guy. um, I don't think they do. At least my grandparents. But of course, most of those stories are gas was 25 cents a gallon or something like that. So I don't know if there was much spice to be adding there. Well, for them, gosh, because they lived through, or at least the grandparents I'm thinking of, they lived through the Great Depression. So, um, yeah. Yeah. Well, every generation gets their story in a sense. Something happens. So, yep. But how are you doing? You said confusing, right? What's up? Yeah, they would have lived through World War II. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if my grandpa has World War II stories. I mean, there's other older gentlemen that I know war, went to World War II. I'm not familiar with my grandpa's, if they did. I'm getting shut from many people. Kind of confused why. Okay. Um, do we want to do a reading about that? Or do you want to just talk about it? Oh, wow. Family of veterans. Hopefully the trend doesn't have to hold or anything. War isn't particularly pleasant. I guess what part of your attitude? Because, like, I know you've done the ladies first thing for some of the people who, when it's time to do readings and whatnot. So I assume there's some particular nuances you're thinking of, right? Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's really a significant problem. Or maybe you're thinking, or maybe you're talking about something different from what I'm thinking. Projecting too strong. Um, well, I mean, there's a couple. Are you talking like you're loud? Just vocally, you've got big lungs or something, and so volume wise, you're just loud, or projecting as in you're imposing yourself on others in a sense? Gotcha. Okay. Like, I understand it. It's just I don't know to what extent that's important to them. or I guess to what extent it becomes a problem. Because obviously people can normally live fine, but um, yeah, maybe their needs are just a bit more precise. Um, imposes. I guess I don't understand what the revert is like. Okay. All right. I mean, that's not a bad practice. Um, um, but I guess do you have to hold it in for a long period? Is that part of what makes it awkward for people? Or okay. Okay. Um, I guess what do you mean by their expectations from you? Because if if they're shutting you out, um, they're expecting very little or perhaps bad things for some reason. Bad being relative. Um, because I guess it sounds like there might be sort of a hot and cold behavior, um, which is kind of whiplash. Because you're, um, okay. Because on the stream and whatnot, you have no problem chatting, and so I'm guessing you tend to be extroverted in a certain sense. Um, okay. So I guess am I reading this right in that you tend to be outgoing, verbal? Um, okay, very sarcastic. Um, I don't see that much in the digital format, but people do have different behaviors online versus offline. Um, but they take it negatively. I guess I guess it's hard for me to tell if it's just personality, attitude, like is it the sarcasm, is it just too over the top for too many people? Or is it possibly the sulking thing? Does that happen on a pretty regular basis? Because the sulking, that could be hot and cold, just like social whiplash. Right. Yeah. I get that. Um, I guess because sometimes sarcasm is fun. Sometimes it clutters the conversation. Um, so it might be that you're being, well, as you say, possibly too sarcastic. Um, you might want to be more particular when you're using that. Um, when it's got real good contrast and is adding value. Um, because yeah, I could see if you're going over the top on the sarcasm, it could be derailing for people, and it feels like they're not really making progress, and you're not being earnest with them in a sense. Um, if you keep going off on these tangents, so to speak. Um, yeah. Um, yeah, if we think that's what it is, I mean, you could try reining that back. I almost wonder if it would be better to do like a cold turkey, um, really clamp down on it for a couple weeks so you get the feel of what the other extreme is like, um, and then figure out a better middle ground. Because trying to warm up or cool down, whichever way you think sarcasm is, um, um, to get to a better middle ground might be difficult, especially if it's habitual and it's just what you're used to. It's basically ingrained potentially. So, but yeah, cold turkey is a real hard thing to do. If you can, and if you can do it consistently, then yeah, that'll give you a good um, understanding of the other extreme, and then it'll be easier, I think, to moderate and find a middle, or at least understand where you are on the spectrum. So, what are your thoughts? Does that sound about right? Well, if you think cold turkey is easy, okay. I guess you're not oversimplifying it, are you? Because when you're being sarcastic, you are trying to say something. Um, cold turkey isn't just shutting up entirely and being distanced. It's not that sulky we were talking about. Um, it's just being able to say things directly without the um, indirectness of the sarcasm. Okay. Because yeah, um, that's more than just the sarcasm you would be trying to target. Um, Cold turkey, in this case, isn't not talking, basically, not communicating. It's just being more particular about how you communicate, or rather, not communicating in a particular way that you're used to. So, because yeah, just cutting off communication, yeah, I agree, that's relatively easy. Um, but we do want to communicate, we just want to do it better and in a way that keeps the people engaged with us long term. Yeah, it will. And if you need to slow down, um, like again, don't cut off communication, don't stop. But if you need to slow it down, throttle it so you can keep up, so that you can get that practice in. Um, yeah, that would make sense. That would be a fair compromise. Um, yeah, probably. Um, so I guess um, if you're worried about that being overly much, um, yeah, I would probably try throttling it. Um, just limit your, well, yeah, I mean, if you could limit your social interactions so that it's easier, um, so that the amount is easier to handle, that'd be great. But if that's difficult, um, yeah, well, it shouldn't necessarily be more difficult. It shouldn't be um, maneuvering and subtlety. Like with sarcasm, by its nature, it's indirect. So cutting it out and simplifying things, you would just be expressing the same thing directly. Um, I don't know that politically and morally are ever aligned. Well, I mean, they could be, but politically correct is rather subjective. So, oh, um, hmm. You would say your sarcasm falls in the dark humor category? I mean, you don't necessarily need to. Well, yeah, it would be a form of redirect because you've got only sometimes. Then I'm not too concerned about that in particular. But yeah, I guess it would be some effort to, because right now the default is sarcasm. Um, you'll want to be more comfortable changing gears basically and having another mode that's not as indirect, or for some people the darkness maybe, maybe much, but yeah, yeah, we just want you to get comfortable enough with another setting per se, that it's easier to change between the two, uh, and then it'll be able to balance, or you can pick and choose, if which might be easier. Some people can't handle it, some people can handle it very easily, and then it's balancing the people so that you're not um, too exhausted controlling it. Um, yeah, sort of. I mean, someone has to be looking for them to stand out. I am a tall guy myself, so um, I guess, standing out, excuse me, isn't too big a concern, I suppose. Um, it's when you stand out and are attacked, I guess. That's the issue. Which, I mean, would indicate that society, um, or at least the vocal part of society, doesn't like what you're doing for some reason, and that you should conform, is basically what it gets down to. Um, and there's a certain delight in being a nonconformist, but I mean, it also has its faults. So, yeah. I guess, what do you mean by studying something? As in basically narrowing the research field so that you can focus on a particular problem? Okay, gotcha. Well, um, yeah, I mean, studying a problem that you're overthinking doesn't actually, well, it doesn't necessarily stop you from overthinking about it. Um, you just want to make sure you've picked a good problem. So, because then, I mean, there's definitely some churn and burn and potential burnout with overthinking. Um, but if it's well directed, it should be rewarding to chase down. So, okay, yeah. So throttle it if you need to. Um, Presumably, you can figure out tactics for that. Um, but yeah, otherwise, make sure it's well directed. Because otherwise, people who focus on the wrong things really burn themselves into a hole, into a little niche that they never really escape. Okay. Okay. And yeah, even if the tactics are heavy handed, if people care about you, then it should work out in the end. So, of course, if they're subtle or, um, well, subtle, slower, less obvious, then all the better. They won't even notice in that case. But yeah. Okay. What's with me? Well, I'll have to start looking for a job soon. So that was kind of the deal. I got my hiatus for the first bit, and the wedding lined up with right around when I needed to stop. So gotta start making money because there's only so much. Oh, no problem. I mean, this sort of stuff. I mean, tarot and the mystical part, the spiritual aspect, like a number of people can key into that, but I think academically, um, the psychology and whatnot appeals to me. So, field, well, I mean, I was programming, so I could just jump into that again. Um, Ideally, you'd be a little more creative. My sister sent me this game writer position, so I plan to call them about that because they want basically some sort of writing sample, something to look at what you can do. And I'm not familiar enough with what the expectation there is, so I'll need to research that and maybe ask them what they're looking for. So there's that one. Otherwise, probably checking out other video game companies to see if we can get into a more creative, fun. I do like the visual part, field or area, I guess. Otherwise, I'd probably be looking to pivot into either testing code or analysis, although I'm not sure anything pays quite as well as writing code, which I guess testers nowadays can sometimes be programmers too. So, yeah. Well, and I've got some money, so I can afford to spend some time being picky about what I do next. So, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it'd be nice to mix it up a bit. Just a bit, though. Okay, well, I guess I'm feeling kind of slow today, so I think I might call it good. It's been fun talking. I know we didn't do any tarot, but that's totally fine. We got some serious talk in, so that was good. Oh, really? But then they like the flying stuff more. I mean, it would make sense. I assume you're talking about an aviation instructor. I could be wrong. Gotcha. Okay. Thanks again, Wingman. Okay. And till next time, take care.